Chosen one. Listen carefully. December 9 was not just another day on the calendar. It was a hinge in heaven's timeline. A silent turning of divine gears that few on earth even noticed. You are not reading these words by accident. Heaven has paused everything around you to make sure you understand what happened that day. The truth God revealed on December 9 was not meant for everyone. It was meant for those whose spirits were awake enough to hear the whisper behind the noise, the vibration beneath the surface. That whisper was not a sound, it was a calling. You felt it, didn't you? That tug in your chest that you couldn't explain. That sudden awareness that something unseen was shifting. You thought it was just another wave of emotion. But heaven knew it was the breath of God brushing against your soul. On December 9, the line between the seen and the unseen grew thin. And for a moment, heaven allowed the chosen to glimpse eternity's blueprint. The earth kept spinning, but something inside you stopped. You were being marked. God does not reveal truth by accident. He orchestrates moments, numbers, even time itself to call his chosen ones out of the noise. While the world scrolled in distraction, heaven wrote your name on light. The Spirit whispered, "Pay attention. This is for you." And if you are reading this now, it means your spirit recognized that whisper. You are not ordinary. You have been set apart for something extraordinary. As the prophet wrote in the Gospel of John, chapter 16, verse 13, "When the Spirit of truth comes, he will guide you into all truth and reveal what's coming." That verse is not a poetic idea, it's a living reality unfolding inside you right now. The Spirit of truth is guiding you. Every strange event, every delay, every sudden awakening you've felt since that day has been his voice teaching you to see differently. You are no longer walking blind. You are walking guided. Heaven is intentional. December 9 was a divine checkpoint, a crossing where many were meant to decide whether they would keep following the patterns of the world or step into the destiny designed before time. You have been through storms, through rejections, through silent battles that nobody else saw. Yet here you are, still standing. That is proof that your pain was not punishment, it was preparation. Every night you cried alone. Every betrayal, you survived it. All trained your spirit to hear heaven's frequency. The truth that was revealed that day was simple, but world-shattering. Not everything that glitters is light. And not every silence means absence. God hid his treasures in the quiet so that only those who truly seek would find. He placed his truth not in thunder, but in whispers. The proud missed it, the humble received it. Chosen one, you are being awakened because your name was spoken in the courts of heaven. The angels were given new assignments concerning your life. Old doors closed, not because you were forgotten, but because new paths were being carved that only obedience can unlock. What you are walking into now will not make sense to the world, but it is sacred. Do not doubt what you discerned on December 9. That was the Spirit confirming what your heart had always known. You are called, consecrated, and chosen. So, what now? You step forward. You begin to see everything differently. Your pain as purpose. Your waiting as warfare. Your weakness as invitation. The truth revealed to you was not about events, it was about identity. God showed you who you really are. And once you know that, you cannot unsee it. The Spirit is saying now, remember that day. Every time you doubt, return to it. Every time you feel lost, remember the clarity that settled in your soul. December 9 was your spiritual landmark, the moment heaven wrote mine over your life. And as you stand in this revelation, I invite you pause and breathe this in. If this message ignites something inside you, don't let it stay silent. Let heaven know you received it. Like this message, share it with another soul who needs awakening. And write your Amen in the comments as a public declaration you are aligning with what heaven spoke. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to this space where the chosen gather, because what's coming next will build on what was revealed. December 9 was not the end. It was the beginning. Prophetic number 999. You felt it in your spirit long before you could explain it. Something within you began to vibrate differently, as if heaven itself had brushed against your heart. You couldn't describe it to anyone. It wasn't anxiety. And it wasn't just emotion. It was awakening. It was the quiet realization that your life was never random, that every delay, every closed door, every ache was positioning you for something greater than you imagined. There were nights you stared at the ceiling and whispered, "God, what is happening to me?" The world told you it was exhaustion, heartbreak, or confusion. But deep down, your spirit knew this was divine interference. God was rearranging the very structure of your inner world. Every thought that used to comfort you began to crumble. Every distraction lost its taste. And the noise around you no longer satisfied your soul. You were not breaking down, you were breaking open. The Spirit was awakening your discernment. Suddenly, you could feel when something was off. Even if you couldn't prove it, you started seeing through smiles that hid deception, through opportunities that looked good but carried heaviness. The more your sensitivity increased, the lonelier it felt. People called you too intense, too emotional, too deep, but they could not feel the spiritual currents that you could. You were never meant to fit in. You were meant to perceive what others ignore. You started noticing patterns, how certain conversations drained you, how some atmospheres became unbearable, how silence became more nourishing than noise. These were not coincidences. Heaven was teaching you the language of the Spirit. Your senses were being recalibrated, trained to discern truth from illusion. You were learning that peace is not the absence of noise, but the presence of divine order. This sensitivity is not weakness, it is power. When God calls someone chosen, He amplifies their ability to feel. Because to lead others into light, you must first recognize darkness when it approaches. You must know when to speak and when to stay still. You must sense when heaven is moving and when hell is mimicking. This is why you have felt so different. Your perception is your anointing. There were moments when your chest felt heavy for no reason, when tears came without pain, when your dreams began to speak clearer than your days. These were not random experiences. The Spirit was calling you to remember that your body is not separate from your spirit. It is a vessel through which heaven sends signals. When you feel unrest, it's not punishment, it's an alert. When you sense peace, it's not illusion, it's alignment. The Apostle reminds us in his letter to the Romans, chapter 8, verse 16. The Spirit Himself testifies with our spirit that we are God's children. You see, that inner confirmation you feel, that whisper that tells you you belong to God, is not imagination, it's evidence. It is heaven verifying your identity. The Spirit within you agrees with the Spirit above you. That connection cannot be broken by circumstances, rejection, or fear. You may feel distant, but you are never disconnected. Every time you doubt your worth, the Spirit reminds you that you are a child of the Almighty, sealed and marked by grace. This is why the world's noise no longer satisfies you. Your soul has outgrown what once entertained it. The Spirit is teaching you to crave silence, truth, and presence. You used to run from quiet moments. Now they are your sanctuary. The divine whisper has become more powerful than the loudest applause. Many people mistake the stirring inside them for anxiety, not realizing it is spiritual motion. The chosen ones feel spiritual earthquakes before they happen in the natural. You are sensing what's to come. That tension in your heart is God stretching your capacity to carry revelation. You are being prepared for information, assignments, and encounters that would crush those unprepared. That's why He had to isolate you first, to strengthen your roots before your branches could stretch wide. Sometimes you wonder why God doesn't speak louder, why He doesn't make things clearer. But chosen ones are not trained by volume, they are trained by vibration. God speaks to you through stillness because He wants you to depend on discernment, not noise. His voice will never compete with chaos. It will always invite you deeper into peace. So, when you feel that subtle pull, again the sudden heaviness before a decision, the peace before a shift, don't ignore it. That's the Spirit guiding you. Heaven communicates through impressions, and the more you listen, the clearer they become. Trust that you are not crazy. Trust that you are not overreacting. You are simply tuned to a higher frequency. The world cannot understand those who walk by Spirit. You are not meant to be understood. You are meant to be revealed. This is why God has been quiet, because He's been showing you through experience what words could never teach. He's teaching you the rhythm of His heart, the pulse of His presence. You felt it in your spirit because you are His. And once you feel the vibration of heaven inside your soul, nothing in this world will ever sound the same again. The silent separation began long before you noticed it. It didn't start with arguments or endings. It started with stillness. One by one, the things, people, and habits that once surrounded you began to fade. Conversations felt empty. Rooms that used to feel familiar now carried a strange chill. You began to realize that you were standing in between two worlds, the world that was falling asleep and the one that was waking up. It wasn't punishment, it was positioning. Heaven was moving you out of the noise so that you could hear the whisper. The people who left weren't your enemies, they were lessons. The silence that grew wasn't loneliness, it was divine preparation. God was dividing light from darkness, truth from deception, and destiny from distraction. He was separating you from what could not carry your next season. At first, it felt cruel. You tried to hold on, to fix, to explain yourself. But heaven would not allow it. The Spirit was cutting invisible cords that once tied you to cycles of compromise. Every unanswered message, every friendship that faded, every door that closed was not rejection, it was release. You were being pulled into purity, even when it hurt. Chosen one, you must understand before God exposes the world around you. He first exposes the world within you. That's why you've been uncomfortable. You've felt restless, out of place, even misunderstood by those you love. But this discomfort is holy. It's the sign that transformation is near. The shaking you feel is not destruction, it's distinction. Heaven is saying, You can't stay where they are, because where you're going requires clean hands and a clear heart. It was written in the very beginning of Scripture. In the book of Genesis, chapter 1, verse 4, God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. Do you see, separation is not an act of cruelty, it's an act of creation. When God wants to bring something new into existence, he begins by dividing what no longer belongs together. Just as he separated light from darkness, he's now separating you from what cannot reflect his glory in you. It's not rejection, it's refinement. The silence that surrounds you now is sacred. This is the place where identity forms. God is not punishing you with distance, he's inviting you into depth. In the stillness, he rebuilds what noise once distracted. You are learning that the absence of people does not mean the absence of God. In fact, sometimes he must clear the room before he performs resurrection. You've noticed how your conversations have changed. You no longer have patience for gossip, empty talk, or shallow dreams. You crave purpose, truth, and peace. That's not pride, that's evolution. Your spirit is maturing. You are stepping into a frequency that no longer tolerates what drains your soul. The more you obey that inner prompting, the more heaven entrusts to you. This is what separation feels like. It's not glamorous, but it's glorious. The quiet seasons are heaven's workshops. God is crafting your character in the silence. He's building endurance, teaching you discernment, and breaking your dependency on validation. You're learning that divine confirmation means more than human applause. Sometimes the silence gets heavy. You wonder, did I do something wrong? Why does everything feel so still? But remember this: when a seed is buried, it's not dead, it's being planted. The soil feels like darkness, but it's the birthplace of destiny. You are not being hidden because you failed. You are being hidden because you're chosen. The same God who separated light from darkness is now separating your calling from confusion. Look around you. Everything ordinary is fading. You can't unsee what you've seen. You can't unhear what you've heard. The old world no longer fits the new you. That is not loss, it's confirmation. The silence you feel is the sound of heaven making room for something greater. So don't fight the separation. Don't chase what's falling away. If they left, it means their part in your story is complete. If it ended, it means it served its divine purpose. God removes access when he's about to release authority. You cannot walk into your next chapter carrying people and patterns from your past. You have been called to stand apart, not because you are better, but because you are becoming. The ones who once mocked your faith will soon recognize your light. The same people who called you too spiritual will one day ask for your prayers. The separation is not permanent isolation, it's preparation for elevation. And when the silence feels unbearable, remember this: heaven often speaks the loudest in the quietest rooms. That unease in your chest is not emptiness, it's expansion. You are being stretched for what's coming next. Now, pause here. Chosen one, breathe deeply. Feel the peace that comes from knowing you are exactly where God needs you. The old has ended. The new has begun. The light is being separated from the dark, and you are standing right where heaven drew the line. Comment, "I am ready" below, not as routine, but as agreement, as a declaration that you will not resist the separation anymore. When you write those words, you affirm that you understand the silence is sacred. The stillness is divine. And this new season will be built on obedience. You are ready for what heaven has next. What you once dismissed as coincidence was never coincidence at all. Every strange delay, every sudden shift in atmosphere, every conversation that seemed divinely timed, these were markers of a hidden battle taking place all around you. The physical world you see is only a shadow of the spiritual realm that moves unseen. You were not paranoid, you were perceptive. You felt the clash between light and darkness before you could name it. You were sensing warfare. Heaven and hell have always contended for influence over souls. But lately, the battle has intensified. The reason you felt weary, heavy, or emotionally scattered is because your spirit stands on a front line you didn't even know existed. The attacks didn't come because you were weak. They came because you were marked. The enemy never wastes energy on those who pose no threat. Every storm, every distraction, every whisper of doubt has been aimed to pull your focus from destiny. Yet, even in the fog of conflict, you remained standing. You've survived emotional ambushes, spiritual confusion, and waves of discouragement that tried to drown your faith. Sometimes you questioned why everything seemed to hit at once, relationships shaking, finances shifting, health fluctuating, but that's because the enemy always attacks when you are nearest to revelation. The warfare was proof that something holy was about to break through. If only you could see what happens in the invisible. The angels assigned to your life do not rest. Every prayer you've whispered in exhaustion was gathered like arrows of light, shot into the unseen realms where battles rage beyond sight. When you felt too tired to pray, heaven still fought for you. The Holy Spirit groaned on your behalf when your voice fell silent. Every tear that fell became a decree in the courts of heaven, declaring your endurance as testimony against darkness. You must understand spiritual warfare is not only about casting down the enemy, it's about awakening awareness. God allows the conflict so that you learn who you are. You learn your authority. You discover that peace is not the absence of battle, but the presence of God within the storm. Every attack has revealed something about your strength. You've learned to pray sharper, to worship deeper, to discern quicker. You've learned to sense the enemy's hand before he moves. That is spiritual maturity being born through trial. The apostle wrote of this mystery in the letter to the Ephesians, chapter 6, verse 12. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Those words are a map, not a metaphor. They reveal the structure of the unseen resistance that rises against the chosen. Every distraction, every argument, every temptation is a calculated move from those forces that cannot bear the light you carry. But you must also remember they are already defeated. The victory was sealed long before you entered the battle. The cross was not just redemption, it was conquest. You are not fighting for victory, you are fighting from victory. The enemy's greatest weapon is illusion. He wants you to believe that the pressure means you are losing, when in truth, it means you are advancing. He wants you to see chaos and assume God is absent, when in fact, the shaking is proof that heaven is near. If the enemy cannot destroy you, he will try to distract you. But once you recognize his tactics, his influence loses power. Awareness itself is armor. That is why discernment is rising within you. You've begun to notice the patterns, how certain arguments erupt right before breakthroughs. How sudden fatigue arrives right before prayer. How fear surfaces when new doors open. These are not random, they are strategic. But now you see them for what they are. Recognition is revelation. And revelation is freedom. Still, warfare is not meant to make you afraid. It is meant to remind you of your authority. When you speak, darkness trembles. When you worship, chains break. When you forgive, curses dissolve. You are not a victim of spiritual battle. You are a weapon shaped by it. Every wound has taught you how to wield compassion. Every loss, how to wield wisdom. Heaven trusts you with more because you have proven you will not bend to fear. So, walk forward. Chosen one. With your eyes open but your heart unshaken. The noise of war may surround you, but peace remains within you. Remember, the greater the warfare, the greater the calling. God would not have allowed this battle if he had not already placed victory in your hands. You are not merely surviving, you are learning to rule. And every unseen clash around you is confirming what heaven already knows. You are unstoppable. There is something sacred about tears. You have cried in silence, wiped your face in the dark, and wondered if heaven even noticed. But chosen one, every tear you've shed was not wasted, it was weighed. Not one drop fell unnoticed. God has collected them like rare pearls, stored in jars of remembrance. You thought your tears meant weakness, but in the language of heaven, tears are signals. Every time you broke, you sent up a sound that only God could interpret, a spiritual code that summoned divine attention. You see, pain has a frequency. It travels farther than words. When you cried, you were not merely expressing sorrow, you were releasing worship. Those tears were your offering, your incense, your testimony that even in pain, you still trusted. The heavens responded. Angels marked your location. What looked like suffering was actually synchronization. Your tears aligned you with purpose. We are reminded through the writings of David in the Psalms. Chapter 56, verse 8. You keep track of all my sorrows. You have collected all my tears in your bottle. You have recorded each one in your book. Do you feel the weight of that promise? Every sorrow has been catalogued. Every sleepless night is written in divine ink. The same God who spoke galaxies into motion bends down to count your tears. That's not pity, that's covenant love. It means your pain has never been ignored. It has been converted into purpose. When you cried over betrayal, heaven recorded your faithfulness. When you wept over disappointment, God saw endurance being formed. When you fell to your knees in exhaustion, light gathered around you. Your pain became prophetic. It pointed to a destiny too heavy to be carried by laughter alone. Think of a seed buried beneath the soil. It is surrounded by darkness, soaked in moisture, seemingly forgotten. Yet it is that very soaking those hidden tears of the earth that awaken life inside it. The same is true for you. Your tears were not signs of death, they were signals of germination. Something in you was being resurrected beneath the surface. You've noticed that after deep sorrow often comes strange clarity. That's not coincidence. Tears wash the eyes of the soul. What was blurry becomes sharp. What was confusing becomes illuminated. You start seeing people and patterns differently. You discern motives that once deceived you. The pain didn't blind you, it baptized your vision. You now see through heaven's lens. This is why, when others mocked your sensitivity, heaven smiled. God knew that only hearts soft enough to weep can carry the weight of compassion. You are not fragile. You are finely tuned. You feel deeply because you are designed to heal deeply. Your tears are the ink heaven uses to write mercy into the world. But there's another truth: tears demand transformation. When you've cried long enough, the soul begins to demand movement. You start realizing that your tears were not just release, they were revelation. They whispered, something has to change. That's when courage begins to rise. You stop running from your purpose and begin walking toward it. Trembling, but trusting. Let your tears teach you, not torment you. Every sorrow carried a message. Perhaps it said, you are stronger than you think. Or, it's time to let go. Or maybe, love again. The key is not to resent the pain, but to redeem it. Hold it up like stained glass and watch how light passes through the cracks, creating colors that never existed before. That is what God is doing in you, turning your tears into testimony. Now, beloved, if these words find resonance in your heart, let this be a moment of holy exchange. Just as your tears have been an offering, you can allow your gratitude to flow outward. When you like, when you share, when you subscribe, you're not feeding an algorithm, you're spreading light. You're letting someone else, somewhere, know that their own tears have meaning too. And if your heart feels led to give, consider it like adding oil to the flame. Every small gift becomes a torch that keeps this message burning brighter, reaching farther. It's never about obligation, it's about overflow. You give not because you have plenty, but because you recognize the seed hidden inside your sacrifice. Even the widow's coin echoed louder in heaven than the wealth of kings, because it came from the heart. So when you press that button, when you sow into this work, imagine your offering as a tear transformed into light, your testimony shining into another soul's midnight. That is what partnership with heaven looks like. You and I together, carrying the flame, turning mourning into meaning. Lift your head, chosen one. Wipe your eyes, but never erase what they've seen. You are proof that tears can build altars, that pain can plant gardens, that brokenness can birth beauty. Heaven is still counting, still recording, still redeeming, and soon, the bottle that once held your tears will overflow, not with sorrow, but with joy unspeakable. The prophetic alignment of December 9 was not random. That day carried a rhythm that heaven itself composed. Time bowed that day. Clocks moved the same. Yet everything in the unseen slowed, as if eternity leaned close to whisper a mystery to creation. You may not have noticed the air change, but your spirit did. Something divine intersected with the ordinary. It was the day destiny shifted gears. Hidden timelines, long prepared, long delayed, suddenly began to move. Prayers that had been waiting in suspension started to unfold. Promises long forgotten were reactivated. It was as though God said, now, not yesterday, not tomorrow, now. December 9 was the moment prophecy met its appointed hour. You see, heaven is mathematical in its movements. Every revelation, every miracle, every awakening operates under divine alignment. The sun does not rise by accident, nor do stars scatter without pattern. Likewise, your life has been following an unseen geometry of grace. December 9 was one of those coordinates on heaven's map where divine timing collided with human awareness. Perhaps you felt restless that day. Perhaps you couldn't explain the heaviness or the calm. Maybe your mind was distracted, but your spirit felt an unspoken instruction. Pay attention. That's because heaven was realigning your atmosphere. The things that were out of order in your life began to click back into divine sequence. What once resisted you started releasing. The doors that seemed sealed began to respond to the sound of obedience, as was spoken in the sacred texts of old. In the book of Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 3. For the revelation awaits an appointed time. It speaks of the end and will not prove false, though it linger. Wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay. Those words are not simply ancient poetry. They are a prophecy that still pulses with power. The revelation always comes on time. Heaven never misses its cue. What looks like delay to man is precision to God. December 9 was proof that divine promises do not expire. They mature. Some of the prayers you thought were ignored were simply aging like fine wine, becoming stronger, clearer, and more powerful for the right moment. That day was a celestial appointment, heaven's calendar intersecting with yours. Angels were dispatched. Assignments were activated. The spiritual atmosphere rippled with a quiet intensity. You may not have seen it, but something in you began to awaken, like a compass needle suddenly finding true north. Your spirit realigned with heaven's rhythm. It was also a day of exposure. Truth began to surface in places where deception had lived comfortably. You started seeing things for what they truly were: relationships, opportunities, even inner motives. That sudden clarity was not suspicion, it was revelation. Heaven was adjusting your vision, teaching you to distinguish between the glitter of distraction and the glow of purpose. Prophetic alignment is not only about external events, it is about internal order. God first brings alignment to your thoughts, your emotions, your desires. He begins to synchronize your will with His. That's why you may have felt torn recently, part of you wanting to move ahead, another part being pulled back. The Spirit was recalibrating you, ensuring that your next step would land exactly where grace can sustain it. December 9 was heaven's announcement that the waiting season has entered its final stage. You are no longer wandering, you are being positioned. What used to confuse you will soon make sense. Patterns will align. Delays will reveal purpose. You'll begin to see how even detours were directions in disguise. God wastes nothing, not your pain, not your patience, not your past. And yet, prophetic alignment requires participation. Heaven sets the stage, but you must take your place. The Spirit can open doors, but you must walk through. God can drop signs in your path, but you must perceive them. Faith is not passive observation, it is active agreement. You don't chase the signs, you align with them. When the planets move, tides shift. When heaven moves, hearts awaken. You are part of that movement. Every yes you whisper to God sends ripples through eternity. Your obedience today becomes alignment tomorrow. And if you are reading these words right now, you are already within that sacred synchronization. This message is not coincidence, it is confirmation. You are standing in a prophetic stream that began long before you were born. And December 9 was one of its turning points. So, chosen one, pause for a moment. Feel it, the invisible order being restored around you. You are being positioned for encounters, connections, and callings that could not manifest until now. You are stepping into divine timing. and nothing can stop what heaven has aligned. As an act of agreement, comment 7777 below. Not as superstition, but as a prophetic symbol of divine alignment, 4 sevens, representing completion in every direction: north, south, east, and west. Let it be your declaration that you choose to flow with heaven's order, not resist it. When you write that number, you echo what the Spirit whispered on December 9, the wait is over. Alignment has begun. There are moments when God speaks so softly that the entire world seems to go silent. The message few could hear was never meant for the crowd. It was crafted for those whose spirits were trained by quiet obedience. On December 9, the divine voice did not thunder from the sky, it whispered through the stillness. Those who listened with the heart instead of the ear were the ones who caught it. You might have noticed that heaven rarely shouts. The Creator, who commands storms, also speaks in sighs. His voice does not compete with chaos, it calls you away from it. That's why so many missed the revelation that day. They were too busy searching for fireworks, while God was speaking in frequencies only humility could detect. The chosen didn't hear because they were louder, they heard because they were still. To the untrained heart, silence feels like absence, but for those who have walked with God long enough, silence is conversation. It is the sacred pause between divine sentences, the breath before the next instruction. Heaven often hides its greatest truths in moments of stillness because silence filters the pretenders from the pursuers. Those who chase emotion walk away, those who seek encounter wait. The prophet Elijah understood this. He had seen fire fall from the sky, heard the roar of crowds, and felt the power of miracles. But when he hid in the cave, desperate to hear God again, the Almighty chose a different form. The voice of God thundered in the first book of Kings, chapter 19, verse 12. After the earthquake came a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire came a gentle whisper. That whisper, that holy stillness, is where the chosen meet God most deeply. It's not in the noise of success, nor in the applause of men, but in the quiet moments when the heart finally surrenders. You have felt this whisper before: the nudge to forgive, the pull to release, the inner knowing that refuses to be silenced. That is God's voice. It doesn't demand attention, it invites transformation. Many people claim to want divine direction, yet few are willing to wait long enough to hear it. Heaven doesn't speak to impress, it speaks to instruct. The quieter His voice, the closer His presence. When you learn to recognize that whisper, you will never be deceived by the shouts of this world again. There were times you questioned if you were hearing correctly. You wondered, was that God, or just my own thoughts? But here is the truth: when your thoughts begin to echo His character, that's not confusion, that's communion. God isn't trying to trick you, He's teaching you to trust the sound of His Spirit inside you, the voice that calls you toward peace, truth, and love is always His. It takes spiritual discipline to hear subtlety in a world addicted to volume. You have to turn down distractions, step away from noise, and let silence stretch until it becomes holy. That's where revelation matures. In the still places of your day, in the moments before sleep, in the quiet drive, in the early morning hush, God hides messages that can only be caught, not taught. You've probably realized that when you ignore the whisper, life grows louder in all the wrong ways. Confusion multiplies, anxiety swells. That's not punishment, it's consequence. The world's noise tries to replace what heaven is patiently repeating. But when you return to stillness, clarity rushes in again. The whisper always waits. And here is the paradox: the more familiar you become with the voice of God, the less dramatic it feels. You stop needing signs in the sky or flashes of confirmation. His whisper becomes enough. You start recognizing him in the patterns of your life, in the way certain doors close, in the way peace lingers after certain choices. You begin to understand that revelation is not just what he says, it's also what he withholds. That's why some prayers seem unanswered. They aren't ignored, they're incubating. God withholds clarity sometimes, not to confuse you, but to deepen your dependence. In the pause, faith grows. In the quiet, trust takes root. The whisper trains your heart to follow even when sight fails. On December 9, heaven whispered secrets meant only for those willing to live in this rhythm. You were among them. You didn't just hear with your ears, you felt the shift in your bones. The atmosphere around you carried weight, an invisible awareness that God was near. Others called it coincidence, but your spirit knew the whisper had returned. And it still speaks today. Every time you quiet the noise and turn your attention inward, you'll sense it again, the same frequency, the same peace, the same presence that hovered that day. That's how you know it's him. The voice of God never fades, it echoes through obedience. So guard your silence like treasure. Protect your peace as you would gold. Not everyone will understand your need for solitude, but they don't have to. The chosen live by a different rhythm. You've been invited into divine dialogue. And the most powerful part of that conversation is not when you speak, but when you listen. Before elevation comes separation, and before revelation comes isolation. The test of isolation is one of the most misunderstood seasons in a chosen one's journey. It is the quiet middle between who you were and who you are becoming, the in-between that feels like exile, but is actually preparation. When heaven begins to separate you for purpose, it also draws you into solitude. That solitude can feel like a sentence, but it is really a sanctuary. In the beginning, you resist it. You crave noise, conversation, movement. You scroll. You reach out. You try to fill the silence. Yet nothing satisfies. Messages go unanswered. Invitations dry up. And suddenly you find yourself standing alone. You wonder what changed. What went wrong? But nothing went wrong, everything started going right. God had to remove the crowd so you could rediscover his voice without interference. The chosen cannot grow in comfort. The soil that produces the strongest roots is often the loneliest. When God pulls you away, he is not trying to punish you, he is trying to reveal you. He strips away the illusions that once defined you, the relationships built on convenience, the routines that numbed your spirit, the approval that kept you chained to smallness. Isolation is heaven's pruning. It cuts what cannot carry fruit so that your soul can bloom again. Heaven speaks clearly through the prophet in the book of Isaiah, chapter 30, verse 15. In quietness and trust is your strength. Those words hold the secret to your survival in solitude. Quietness is not weakness, it is weaponry. Trust is not passivity, it is power. When you learn to be still and believe, you gain a kind of authority that cannot be taught by noise. You stop chasing validation because you finally realize that God's presence is enough. In isolation, the masks fall away. There's no one left to impress, no applause to chase. It is there, when the noise of people fades, that you begin to hear the echo of your own heart again. The silence becomes a mirror, reflecting back everything you avoided seeing, the fears you buried, the dreams you delayed, the wounds you denied. They all surface in the quiet. But even that is grace. God cannot heal what you keep hiding. He draws it out, not to shame you, but to free you. It's strange how loneliness becomes a teacher. You begin to see that the absence of people exposes the presence of God. You start realizing that peace is not the result of control, but surrender. You learn to sit still and let divine timing do what your striving never could. Slowly, something shifts. You stop waiting for rescue and start discovering resilience. What once terrified you now transforms you. And in that hidden place, heaven begins to rebuild you from the inside out. The Spirit starts rewriting your inner dialogue. The voice that once said, "I am not enough," becomes, "I am chosen." The echo that once said, "I am forgotten," becomes, "I am protected." The more time you spend in divine solitude, the clearer your identity becomes. You start realizing that you were never meant to be understood by everyone, because your assignment was never meant for everyone. Isolation also reveals who truly belongs in your next chapter. When God hides you, the wrong ones lose interest, and the right ones are drawn by the Spirit. That's why you don't have to chase connection. It will find you when the timing is pure. The silence filters your circle until only those aligned with your purpose remain. This season may feel endless, but it has a rhythm. The Spirit will not leave you in isolation forever. Once the work inside you is complete, once your roots are deep enough, your faith steady enough, your discernment sharp enough, He will release you again. But this time, you will emerge different. You will not return to the same people, places, or patterns. You will return as one who knows how to be alone without feeling abandoned. You will walk into rooms quietly radiant, because your confidence no longer depends on applause. It flows from presence. Chosen one, your isolation has meaning. You are not being punished. You are being prepared. You are being refined in silence, so that when your voice returns, it will carry power. Do not rush the process. Let the quiet complete its work. The world may forget you for a while, but heaven is watching closely. Even in your hiddenness, you are surrounded by divine attention. And when the time comes, when the season shifts and the doors open again, you will realize that what once felt like exile was really the birthplace of intimacy. You will step back into the light, not as who you were, but as who you were always meant to be: whole, steady, and unstoppable. There are fires that destroy, and there are fires that refine. The ones that came for you were never meant to consume you. They were meant to purify you. Every trial, every heartbreak, every disappointment was a flame that God permitted only because He knew it would reveal the gold hidden inside your soul. You are not a casualty of suffering. You are the product of refining. The fire that refined you did not begin when your circumstances grew difficult. It began when heaven decided your destiny was too great to be built on anything impure. To prepare a vessel for divine use, God must expose every crack and imperfection, not to shame you, but to strengthen you. So the heat rises, comfort fades, people change, everything unstable begins to burn away. You watch pieces of your life fall apart, and you wonder if you'll survive the blaze. Yet, in that very moment, the divine craftsman is working, shaping, polishing. It hurts because the process is holy. Gold does not complain while it melts. It knows that purity requires pain. The same is true for you. When God turned up the heat, He was not trying to destroy you. He was burning away what could no longer protect you. You were being set free from false attachments, illusions, and fears that hid behind your strength. The prophet wrote of this mystery in the book of Zechariah, chapter 13, verse 9. I will refine them like silver and test them like gold. They will call, and I will answer. That verse is not distant history, it is your story. You have been through the fire, and you are still here. That survival alone is proof that the flames did not win. What burned away was never meant to remain. The pain purified you, stripped you of pride, and revealed the diamond core of your faith. You no longer depend on approval to feel valuable, nor on comfort to feel secure. Your confidence is now forged in heat and sealed in grace. You've probably noticed how much lighter you feel now, even after loss. That's because the fire burned away the excess, the expectations, the pretenses, the need to control. You stand now with open hands, no longer gripping what drains you. You've learned that surrender is stronger than striving. That's the paradox of refinement. The more you let go, the more radiant you become. There were moments in that season when you thought, this is too much. I can't endure another blow. But heaven never turned its face from you. God monitored every degree of that fire, ensuring it could burn only what needed to go. You were never alone in the flames. Like the 3 Hebrew men in Babylon, there was another standing beside you, the same one who whispered courage into your trembling heart. This is why your spirit feels different now. You speak with more compassion. You forgive quicker. You see deeper. Suffering has softened your edges without dimming your light. You carry wisdom that cannot be learned in peace. When others encounter you, they sense a quiet strength, a still flame that doesn't flicker with the wind. That's the mark of those who have walked through fire and come out glowing. Chosen one. The refining was necessary. The anointing you carry cannot rest on untested ground. Every calling must be proven by fire, not because God doubts you, but because He delights in you. He knew the beauty He placed within you, and He wanted it revealed, not hidden under layers of fear or doubt. So He allowed what seemed unbearable, and through it, He unveiled the masterpiece. Look back now, not with bitterness, but with awe. The same moments that tried to break you actually built you. The seasons that scorched your hope refined your purpose. Every wound became a window for light. You are not who you were before the fire. You are refined gold, glowing with resilience, radiating faith. And yet, even gold must be displayed. The world needs the strength you've gained, the wisdom you've learned, the light you've carried through darkness. Someone else is walking through flames right now, convinced they won't make it. They need to see your glow to believe survival is possible. So, as a prophetic act of gratitude, comment, "Still I rise." Write it not as cliché but as covenant, a declaration that the fire failed to consume you. When you speak those words, you affirm that what the enemy used for harm became heaven's tool for glory. You are not ashes, you are evidence. You are the living proof that fire refines but does not destroy. Hold your head high. Chosen one. The fire bowed to your endurance. The flames could not silence your faith. What remains after refining is unstoppable. You are the gold of heaven, and your shine is just beginning to reach the world. The enemy's final attempt is always the loudest before his defeat. Right before breakthrough, distractions multiply. Right before light bursts forth, shadows grow bold. You've felt it, the sudden chaos, the strange fatigue, the doubt that comes in waves. It's not random, it's resistance. Darkness senses what heaven is about to release through you, and it panics. The closer you get to your divine assignment, the more the enemy tries to pull your gaze away from it. The adversary cannot steal what God has sealed, so he attempts to distort your vision. He sends confusion to blur your focus, fear to choke your confidence, temptation to slow your pace. He knows he cannot close the door God has opened, but he hopes to distract you long enough to miss your timing. The strategy is subtle. He whispers discouragement, magnifies your flaws, and turns delay into doubt. Yet, every chosen one must remember the noise of battle often means victory is near. When you feel like giving up, that's usually the sign that deliverance is moments away. The enemy's last move is always desperation disguised as opportunity. He will dangle counterfeit blessings before your eyes, relationships that look right but drain you, shortcuts that promise relief but cost your peace, voices that flatter but lead you astray. You must see beyond appearances. Heaven has trained your discernment for this exact moment. As it is written in the second letter to the Corinthians, chapter 10, verse 4, "The weapons we fight with are not of this world. They have divine power to demolish strongholds." That promise still stands unshaken. Weapons may form, but they will fail. Accusations may rise, but they will fall silent. God does not promise a life without warfare. He promises victory in the midst of it. Every arrow the enemy releases becomes another testimony once it misses its mark. Every attempt to silence you becomes a megaphone for your faith. You may not realize it, but the enemy has already lost the upper hand. His last attempt isn't power, it's panic. He cannot stand the sound of your endurance. Every time you wake up and keep believing, you defeat him again. Every act of love, every moment of forgiveness, every prayer whispered in exhaustion, these are strikes against darkness. You are not merely enduring, you are conquering quietly. Think of it like a storm. The fiercest winds always come just before the calm. The sky darkens not to destroy the sun, but to make its reappearance more radiant. You are standing in that moment now, the sky trembling, the thunder loud, but soon the clouds will part. The light will pour through, and you will realize the storm was clearing the air for clarity to return. Chosen one, let this truth settle. Deep the devil attacks what he fears. He doesn't waste ammunition on the faithless. The fact that you've been under pressure means heaven has announced your promotion. The battle you face is not evidence of weakness, it's proof of value. Diamonds are never found on the surface, they are formed under pressure and revealed through cutting. You, too, are being revealed. And now, in this moment of revelation, take a breath. Let gratitude flow through you like clean water after fire. If these words resonate, if something in your spirit whispers, "This is for me," then respond not out of obligation, but out of recognition. When you like, when you share, When you subscribe, you're not performing an act for attention, you're spreading a signal. You're sending light into timelines and hearts that might still be trapped in shadow. Each click becomes a spark, each share a ripple. And if your heart feels led to sow into this work, to donate, let it come from the same place your tears once came from: honesty. Imagine your offering as a candle placed at the edge of someone else's darkness. You might never see their face, but heaven will. Every small gift fuels this flame that keeps truth alive, reaching those who need it most. It's not about transaction, it's about transformation. You're not funding words, you're sustaining light. Your generosity, whether in time, sharing, or giving, becomes like rainfall returning to the clouds that once watered it. The more light you release, the more light returns to you. When you invest in the message of hope, you invest in your own reflection of it. That's how heaven's economy works. What you release multiplies back in peace, clarity, and favor. So, stand steady in the storm. The enemy's final attempt will soon collapse under the weight of your persistence. You are already outlasting the opposition. Your light cannot be silenced. It's too rooted in eternity. The storm is only clearing the view so that the next sunrise can find you ready, radiant, and renewed. The code in the clouds has always been there, written not in ink or letters, but in patterns of time, in movements of nature, in the rhythm of your own breath. God hides messages in plain sight. For those who live awake, every sunrise carries revelation. Every number, every season, every coincidence becomes a note in heaven's language. On December 9, that language became clearer. You began to notice alignment, repetition, synchronicity. It wasn't superstition, it was communication. Heaven speaks through order. Just as creation follows the laws of physics, the spirit realm follows divine patterns. Nothing in your life is accidental. Every encounter, every delay, every unexpected turn is part of a design too intricate for the human mind to map. Yet your spirit recognizes it instantly, that quiet sense of this means something. You feel it when numbers repeat, when a phrase echoes in multiple conversations, when the same scripture appears in different moments. These are not coincidences, they are confirmations. The prophets of old often looked to the heavens for signs, not because they worshipped creation, but because creation worshipped the Creator. The skies were God's canvas. The movements of the stars and the pulse of the wind carried hidden instruction, and the same principle remains. Heaven still leaves clues for the watchful. The patterns that seem random to others form perfect language to those who walk by spirit. It was foretold in the book of Joel, chapter 2, verse 30, "I will show wonders in the heavens and on the earth, blood and fire and billows of smoke." This is not a threat but a promise that the natural world will always testify to the supernatural. When heaven wants to speak, the earth listens. Storms pause. Seasons bend. Even the air thickens when divine purpose enters a moment. You've felt this before, a sudden peace in the middle of chaos, a whisper that interrupts your doubt, a strange calm before change. That is the code, the divine signal carried through creation, urging you to notice. Learning to read the code is not about chasing signs, it's about perceiving patterns of grace. The more you pay attention, the clearer they become. You start seeing how moments connect across time, how pain and promise weave together into a single narrative. You realize that the numbers you keep seeing are not mere digits, they are timestamps of destiny. God is showing you the rhythm of His plan, one confirmation at a time. For instance, when you wake up at the same hour for days in a row, it might not be insomnia, it might be invitation. Heaven could be stirring you to intercede, to listen, to write, to pray. When you feel drawn to a particular verse, it might not be random, it could be a key unlocking understanding for what's ahead. These patterns are heaven's handwriting across your timeline, guiding you step by step. But remember, revelation demands reverence. The code is not for entertainment, it is for alignment. It's not meant to satisfy curiosity, but to build communion. God hides meaning not to confuse you, but to draw you closer. The mystery is an invitation, not a maze. Those who chase the signs without knowing the source lose direction, but those who seek the source begin to understand every sign. You are learning this language now. Each coincidence that stirs your spirit, each repetition that makes you pause, is heaven's way of saying, I'm here. It's a conversation between eternity and your present moment. The skies have become your teacher, the seasons your mentors. The divine is not distant, it's coded into everything that breathes. The code also serves another purpose. It reminds you that you are never alone. Every pattern you notice, every moment of divine timing, is God's fingerprint pressed upon your day. Even in confusion, He leaves clues. Even in pain, He leaves beauty. The universe is not random chaos, it is ordered compassion. The rhythm of your steps has always been guided by unseen hands. When you start to live aware of these signals, fear begins to fade. You stop asking, "Is God with me?" because you start seeing Him everywhere, in the gentle repetition of numbers, in the unexpected kindness of a stranger, in the perfect timing of an answer that arrives just when you surrender. Awareness becomes worship. Chosen one. This is your training ground for prophetic vision. Heaven is teaching you to see the invisible through the visible, to read divine messages written in daily moments. The clouds are not just weather, they are parables. The wind is not random, it's a messenger. The same Spirit who hovered over the waters at creation now hovers over your life, arranging signs and symbols that lead you back to purpose. You are part of that pattern now, a living code of heaven on earth. The more you notice, the more you align. The more you align, the more you hear. And the more you hear, the more you become what you were always meant to be, a walking message, a reflection of divine order, a living prophecy in motion. When mercy paused, time itself seemed to hold its breath. The days around you felt slower, heavier, as though the air carried weight. It wasn't punishment, it was pleading. Heaven was waiting for humanity to choose. Grace had not ended, but it had stepped back for a moment, giving hearts a chance to decide between truth and comfort. That pause, that holy stillness, is the most dangerous and most merciful moment in a chosen one's life. You may have felt it, the unease, the urgency, the strange silence after long prayer. It's the moment when heaven watches, not speaking, to see if obedience will move before confirmation comes. The silence is never absence. It is invitation. It's the space where free will meets divine will, where your choice becomes the hinge of destiny. Mercy pauses when truth has already been spoken. There comes a time when God stops explaining and waits for response, not because He grows tired, but because his justice and his mercy cannot exist without your agreement. You've heard the warnings, felt the conviction, seen the patterns. The next move belongs to you. The Spirit spoke through the writer of Hebrews. Chapter 10, verse 26. If we deliberately keep on sinning after we have received the knowledge of the truth, no sacrifice for sins is left. Those words sound severe. Yet beneath their sternness lies compassion. God warns not to condemn, but to call back. The pause of mercy is not a locked door, it's an open gate waiting for footsteps. Heaven knows that every delay in obedience risks distance. Every hesitation risks blindness. That is why you felt the pressure rising lately. It's not random hardship, it's heaven asking. Will you obey when it costs comfort, when mercy pauses? The Spirit grows quieter, and distractions grow louder. You start noticing temptations intensify, while conviction seems to fade. It's not that God left, it's that He's letting you feel what the world sounds like without His voice leading. It's a test of loyalty, not punishment. Will you still choose truth when it no longer shouts? Will you still walk in light when no one applauds? This is where the chosen are separated from the called. Many people love the idea of grace but resist the demand of holiness. They want blessing without boundary, favor without faithfulness. Yet, the pause of mercy exposes motives. It asks, do you love God for His gifts, or for His presence? Will you stand firm when the applause fades, if you are living through this pause? Remember, silence is still sacred. God's quiet does not mean His heart has turned. In fact, it means He trusts you to walk by what you already know. He's saying, you've heard my word. Now, show me your choice. This is how heaven matures its soldiers. The generals of faith are not made in noise, but in stillness. You might recall the story of Peter, how, after proclaiming his loyalty, he denied Christ 3 times when mercy paused. Yet grace returned, stronger than before. That is the beauty of the pause. It's not permanent. The door remains open for repentance. The path remains clear for return. What matters is how quickly you turn back. If you feel distance from God right now, don't panic. Pause. Silence your fears and listen deeper. The Spirit has not abandoned you. He's simply waiting for response. Sometimes heaven speaks last and waits longest, because it knows that obedience shouted in silence is the loudest worship of all. The world moves fast, but heaven moves with purpose. Don't mistake delay for denial. The pause of mercy is divine patience, not disinterest. It's heaven's final whisper before breakthrough or breaking. If your spirit feels convicted, that's proof mercy is still working. Conviction means the light still burns. When grace is gone, hearts go cold, but yours is still awake, still feeling, still trembling. That is a miracle. So, right now, choose wisely. Don't delay the decision your soul already knows is right. Walk away from what dulls your discernment. Return to the rhythm of prayer. Reclaim the peace you once knew. The pause is passing soon. When it lifts, momentum will come. You'll either move in mercy's flow or stumble in its absence. Choose the former. Choose life. And if this message resonates deep, if you feel that tug in your spirit, the one that says, "This was meant for me," then take a symbolic step. Comment 5555 below. not as ritual, but as revelation. 4 5s. Representing grace multiplied, grace offered, paused, restored, and fulfilled. Let that number be your answer to heaven's question. Let it say, I choose alignment over delay. I choose truth over comfort. I choose to return before the door closes. For mercy has not disappeared. Chosen one, it has only paused long enough to let you turn around. And once you do, it will rush back like a river, washing everything clean again. There are moments in eternity when heaven leans close, and crowns unseen are placed upon human heads. The crowning of the remnant is one such moment. It does not happen in grand ceremonies or under the applause of men. It happens in secret rooms, in tear-soaked prayers, in the quiet decisions to stay faithful when quitting would have been easier. You, chosen one, have been walking toward this moment without even realizing it. Every test, every delay, every season of silence was preparation for coronation. Heaven does not crown the popular, it crowns the proven. The remnant is small because the refining is severe. Many are called, but few stay through the wilderness long enough to be transformed by it. You stayed. You endured the misunderstanding, the waiting, the loneliness. You continued to obey when obedience felt like loss. And because of that, the invisible kingdom has shifted in your favor. The crowning is not about pride, it's about purpose. A crown is not jewelry, it is a signal of authority. When God crowns a remnant, He entrusts them with territory, both spiritual and earthly. It means heaven has found in you a vessel capable of carrying influence without corruption. You have been tested not to prove your strength, but to verify your surrender. The true kings and queens of the Spirit are not the loud ones, they are the ones who bow deepest before God. The Apostle wrote of this in his letter recorded in the book of James, chapter 1, verse 12. Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because, having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love Him. That is the promise being fulfilled in you now. You are standing on the threshold of reward, not material, but eternal. The crown of life is not made of gold or silver, it is the radiance of divine approval, the peace that replaces striving, the authority that flows from endurance. Heaven is placing weight on your spirit that the world cannot see, but hell can feel. The darkness that once taunted you now trembles at the authority you carry. The remnant are those who refused to bow when everyone else did. They kept worshipping when the fire was 7 times hotter. They believed when faith looked foolish. That is why the crown fits them. It's molded by their scars. Each wound became a jewel, each tear a reflection of light. You have earned nothing, but you have been entrusted with much. Grace has made you royal. To be crowned is to be commissioned. The moment heaven places authority upon your life, it expects stewardship, not stagnation. You are not crowned to sit, you are crowned to serve. Authority in the kingdom is not about control, it's about carrying light. You are now a torchbearer, chosen to illuminate dark places, to remind others that endurance has reward. The crown comes with both glory and gravity. The higher the elevation, the deeper the humility required to sustain it. Many lose their crowns because they mistake favor for freedom. But the true remnant understands crowns are maintained through character. The oil that anoints must also be protected. You cannot carry this weight and still live carelessly. The words you speak, The energy you allow, the decisions you make, they all carry consequence now. You are being watched not just by people, but by principalities. Still, the crown is not a burden, it is beauty. It reminds you that all the pain was never pointless. Every silent night was working toward this revelation. Heaven is not rewarding you for perfection, but for perseverance. God saw every moment you chose kindness over vengeance, faith over fear, truth over comfort. He counted those choices like jewels, crafting a crown that reflects your journey. And though you may not see it yet, others will. The glory resting on you will begin to shift atmospheres. People will feel peace when you enter rooms, even if they can't explain why. The authority you carry will open doors you never touched, not because of effort, but because of presence. This is what happens when heaven crowns a heart. It becomes a conduit. So wear your crown quietly. Let it shine through your actions, not your announcements. A true king never needs to prove royalty. His presence reveals it. The spirit within you is your seal of divine appointment. You don't need to fight for recognition. Your obedience already wrote your name in eternal records. And remember this, the crown is not the end. It is the beginning of responsibility. Crowns are given not for past faithfulness alone, but for future assignment. Heaven crowns the remnant because the next season requires leaders who have learned to love purity more than power. You are one of them. When you walk forward, walk as one who knows that heaven has recognized your endurance. Stand tall, not in pride, but in gratitude. Let your life declare, I am what grace built in the fire. You have not been forgotten. You have been chosen to carry light where few can stand. The crown fits you because it was forged in your tears. The world will not understand what they see in you next. They will sense authority, but won't be able to name it. Let them wonder. You don't need validation when you have been crowned by heaven. The remnant rises now, not in noise, but in quiet brilliance. Their crowns unseen but undeniable. There is a moment when those who once merely survived begin to rise as rulers. The awakening of authority is not a burst of arrogance. It is the return of divine order within you. For too long, you walked bowed beneath the weight of fear, doubt, and the opinions of others. But now, something in your spirit has stood upright. You have remembered who you are, not just a believer, but an ambassador of the kingdom. You were never meant to simply endure the darkness. You were designed to command light. Authority in the kingdom of God is not taken, it is bestowed. It does not come from titles or recognition, it comes from revelation. When you finally understand who you belong to, you begin to act like it. That's what is happening to you now. You've stopped asking for permission to shine. You've stopped shrinking to make others comfortable. You are learning to speak as one who carries heaven's backing. Authority begins with identity. It's not about power over people, but power over atmosphere. When you walk into a room, peace follows. When you open your mouth, truth disrupts lies. When you pray, situations begin to shift, not because of who you are alone, but because of who moves through you. The Spirit has awakened within you like a sleeping lion, and the enemy trembles at the sound of your footsteps. It was proclaimed by Christ himself in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 10, verse 19. I have given you authority to trample on snakes and scorpions and to overcome all the power of the enemy. Nothing will harm you. Those words are not metaphor, they are mandate. They remind you that your position in the Spirit is not fragile. The authority you carry is divine inheritance. Heaven does not fear the darkness, and neither should you. The same power that raised Christ from the dead now pulses in your veins, steady and unstoppable. When you speak with faith, heaven echoes. You may have once thought authority meant control, but you've learned it means clarity. It's knowing when to move and when to wait. It's hearing heaven's instructions even when the world screams otherwise. It's the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you are covered. True authority doesn't shout, it commands through peace. The one who has been through storms no longer trembles at thunder. This awakening has been building for years. Every rejection, every hidden battle, every moment you were forced to choose obedience over acceptance was shaping this strength. The trials that humbled you became the very soil from which your authority grows. Heaven can only trust power to those who no longer crave it. That's why the refining came first, so that when authority arrived, it would serve, not dominate. Now, your words hold weight. When you forgive, chains break. When you bless, blessings multiply. When you intercede, the atmosphere bends toward breakthrough. You may not see it immediately, but the spiritual realm responds to you. Angels recognize the mark of heaven's authority upon your life. Hell recognizes it too, and that's why resistance increased. But resistance is not defeat, it's confirmation. The pressure you feel is simply the echo of what your authority disrupts. You are learning how to walk differently now, not as one begging for mercy, but as one entrusted with it. You carry the responsibility of representing heaven on earth. Every time you choose integrity over convenience, you exercise dominion. Every time you silence fear and speak faith, you extend territory. You are no longer reacting to life, you are directing it. The spirit within you has become your compass, and you are following its pull with unshakable purpose. This awakening is not only for you, it's for those connected to you. People will find courage in your calm, healing in your words, and guidance in your example. Authority always multiplies. The moment you rise, others begin to stand taller beside you. That's how the kingdom expands, one awakened soul inspiring another. But authority also requires discipline. Power without purity becomes poison. You must protect what has been entrusted to you through humility, prayer, and continual surrender. The crown you wear from the last season must be carried with reverence in this one. The higher you rise, the more necessary it becomes to stay low before God. True authority is rooted in service. The more power you hold, the more love you must release. You are entering a season where what you decree will manifest faster. Heaven is listening closely. Speak carefully. Speak life. Speak truth. The words you release are no longer idle, they are instruments. The authority awakened in you has purpose to rebuild, to restore, to realign. You are not a spectator of miracles, you are a vessel through which they occur. So, walk boldly. Chosen one, lift your head not in pride, but in recognition. The time of hesitation has ended. The trembling voice has turned into a trumpet. You were born to lead in light, not linger in fear. The awakening of authority has begun, and the earth itself will feel your steps as heaven's power moves through your obedience. The great call to return is echoing across the earth. It is not a shout from the sky, but a vibration in the soul, a low hum that grows louder each day, calling the chosen back to the center of their purpose. You have heard it in your spirit, that restless tug that says, "It's time." You feel it when you pray, when you dream, when the noise of the world fades just long enough for heaven's frequency to break through. The Father is calling his remnant back into position. This is not a call of judgment, it's a call of remembrance. God is not angry, he is yearning. He wants his children to step back into alignment with their original design. Many have wandered, chasing sparks instead of fire, applause instead of anointing. Yet grace remains patient, waiting like dawn at the edge of night. The great call to return is heaven whispering, "Come home to your purpose. Come home to your peace." The warning has been spoken before, in the revelation given to John, chapter 2, verse 5. "Remember from where you have fallen, repent, and do the works you did at first, or lose your lampstand." That verse is both correction and comfort. It does not threaten, it invites. It says, "Return before your light dims." God's desire is not to remove your lampstand, but to restore its flame. The light of the chosen was never meant to flicker under distraction, it was meant to blaze with clarity. That's why he is calling you now, not in anger, but in urgency, wrapped in love. Think of a lighthouse battered by storms. Its light may dim, its walls may crack, but as long as the keeper tends the flame, the tower still stands. You are that keeper. Your calling is the fire, and your obedience is the oil. Without the oil, even the purest flame fades. Heaven is asking you to refill your lamp, to return to prayer, to truth, to purity of heart, not because he needs your service, but because you need his presence. You might feel unworthy, thinking, "I drifted too far." But distance means little to the God who steps across galaxies with a single thought. Your return doesn't require perfection, only surrender. The moment you turn your heart back toward him, you are already home. This call is not only personal, it is prophetic. The world is trembling. Systems are shifting. People are waking up to the emptiness of the noise they once worshipped. The chosen ones are being summoned to stand as anchors of light amid the shaking. You were never meant to blend into the chaos. You were meant to stabilize it. That is why God has been stirring your spirit lately. The trumpet is sounding, and it carries your name. But remember, the call to return is not a solo march, it is a reunion. When one chosen soul awakens, another feels it. When you rise, you pull others upward. This movement is not about one voice, it's about harmony. Heaven is gathering its scattered notes, composing a song of restoration through people like you. If this message reaches you, it means you are part of that melody. The time to hide your light is over. The season of hesitation has ended. Heaven is realigning every willing heart to stand where it once stumbled, to rebuild what it once abandoned. The call is clear: return to the works of love, faith, and obedience that first ignited your spirit. And if these words resonate, if you feel the warmth of that call stirring your heart, let this moment be sacred. When you like, when you share, when you subscribe, don't do it mechanically. Do it as an act of resonance. Each click becomes a ripple of return. Each share sends a fragment of light into someone else's dark night. Somewhere, someone who has almost given up will see your echo of faith and feel the call again. If your heart moves to give, to donate, Think of it not as transaction but transformation. Your offering becomes a bridge, a small beam of light, connecting this message to another searching soul. Imagine it like planting a seed of fire in the soil of the unseen. It will grow into a lighthouse that others will one day find their way by. And then, leave a comment, write, "I choose my crown." Those 4 words are not decoration, they are declaration. They say, I accept my responsibility to return, to lead, to shine. Every time one of the chosen writes it, the heavens take note. The crown is not a symbol of privilege, it is a symbol of purpose. To wear it is to commit to serve, to stand, to stay faithful until the end. You are not too late. The light within you has not gone out, it has only been waiting for breath. The great call to return is your reminder that purpose never expires, it only waits for obedience. Let this be the day you relight your flame, the day you stand tall again, the day heaven's melody finds your note and adds it to the song of restoration resounding across creation. The revelation spreads like fire. What began as a whisper within a few hearts has become a current sweeping through the earth, quiet, yet unstoppable. Those who caught the spark on December 9 now carry it in their eyes, in their voices, in the way they move through the world. The truth revealed that day is not a message to be memorized, it is a flame to be lived, and fire, once ignited, never asks permission to spread. You have felt it, how conversations shift without warning, how the atmosphere around you thickens when you speak about purpose, how people who never cared for spiritual things suddenly lean in when you talk. That's not charisma, that's combustion. The revelation you carry has entered its multiplying stage. The Spirit has turned your story into kindling. And now, with every breath of truth, the spark leaps to another soul. Fire spreads because it consumes what cannot coexist with it. The revelation of this season does the same. It burns away apathy, pride, and fear, leaving only purity and hunger. The chosen ones are becoming walking flames, moving through workplaces, families, and nations with silent power. Some will resist it, mistaking conviction for discomfort. Others will catch it instantly, their spirits igniting as if they had been waiting their entire lives for this moment. The same fire that refines you is awakening them. The world does not need louder noise, it needs brighter heat. The chosen have been hidden not to be silenced but to be set ablaze. And now that the fire is spreading, heaven smiles, not because the chosen are famous, but because the light is finally visible again. Every testimony you've carried, every hardship you've endured, every act of obedience you've chosen, it all becomes fuel for others. It was declared by Jesus himself in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 14. You are the light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hidden. That verse has never been metaphorical, it's a mirror. You were never designed to blend in with the shadows. Your calling has always been illumination. When you walk into a room, something shifts because you carry awareness that others forgot they possessed. It's not arrogance, it's assignment. The fire in you is heaven's answer to the darkness around you. But fire also carries responsibility. It can warm, but it can also burn. That's why discernment is vital in this season. The revelation must remain holy. You cannot use it to impress or manipulate. It must be tended like sacred flame fed by prayer, protected by humility. The chosen who misuse revelation for recognition soon find the flame fading into smoke. But those who guard it carefully see it grow stronger, clearer, and more transformative with time. The spreading fire also changes how you see others. Once, you judged people by behavior. Now you discern them by hunger. You notice who carries embers, those faint glimmers of belief hidden beneath cynicism, and you breathe gently upon them. You no longer argue with the dark, you illuminate it. Fire doesn't debate with cold, it conquers it by being itself. This revelation is contagious not because of words, but because of presence. People don't just hear you, they feel the atmosphere of heaven resting on your life. The peace that follows you is proof that the flame is real. You don't need to convince, you only need to remain. Those who touch your light will carry it forward. There is a divine momentum now, unseen, yet undeniable. The same spirit that spoke on December 9 is whispering to others across the globe, connecting hearts in unseen patterns. It's like watching sparks leap from torch to torch, forming a chain of awakening, stretching beyond borders and languages. You may never meet those who carry the same revelation, but in the spirit, you are already united. The revelation will not remain hidden anymore. It will spread through art, through business, through music, through conversations in grocery lines. It will infiltrate ordinary spaces and turn them sacred. This is how heaven moves, not always through grand displays, but through consistent flames that refuse to die. Chosen one, you are now part of that wildfire of awakening. What began as personal encounter has become collective transformation. Keep burning quietly, steadily, faithfully. You are the evidence that truth, once revealed, cannot be contained. The fire that found you is now finding others, and soon the whole horizon will glow with its light. The prophecy fulfilled. It has been unfolding all along, like dawn slowly overtaking the night. You may not have noticed when the light first began to change, but now it is undeniable. The darkness that once pressed against your chest has loosened its grip. The winds that once opposed you have turned, and the season that began on December 9 has reached its appointed completion. What was promised has begun to manifest. You stand now at the edge of fulfillment, not as the same person who began this journey, but as someone entirely reborn. Every trial has shaped your spirit. Every silence has sharpened your hearing. The confusion that once clouded your mind has become clarity. Where there was heaviness, there is now a grounded peace. You have been transformed from a wanderer into a witness, from one waiting for prophecy to one walking in it. This is what fulfillment looks like, not a sudden explosion of miracles, but a steady awakening of divine alignment. The promises of heaven do not always arrive with spectacle. They settle quietly into the everyday until you realize your prayers have already become your life. What once felt distant has drawn near. What once seemed impossible now breathes through you naturally, like air. You begin to notice it in subtle ways. Doors that once resisted you now open effortlessly. People who once ignored you now seek your presence. Peace that once felt fleeting now stays. You are not forcing outcomes anymore because you have entered the rhythm of grace. Fulfillment is not about striving, it's about synchronization. You are finally moving at the same pace as heaven. The Apostle Paul captured this mystery in his letter to the Philippians. Chapter 1, verse 6. Being confident of this very thing, that he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. That verse is the heartbeat of your current season. What God started in you has not been abandoned midway. Every promise, every dream, Every vision he whispered in your spirit is now maturing into form. You were never forgotten, you were being developed. The delays were never denial, they were construction. God was building a foundation strong enough to sustain the weight of what he promised. The fulfillment of prophecy often feels unfamiliar. You expected celebration, yet you find stillness. You anticipated applause, yet you are greeted by responsibility. That's because fulfillment is not an ending, it's an inheritance. You are not here to admire the completion of prophecy, but to become its continuation. The revelation that once came to you now flows through you. You are no longer a recipient of the message, you are the message. Look at your life closely, and you'll see the fingerprints of heaven everywhere. The conversations that align perfectly, the timing of encounters, the dreams that confirm each other. These are not coincidences. They are echoes of fulfillment. Reminders that you are walking inside something once only spoken. You are living prophecy. Breathing proof that what God declares never returns void. And yet, even in fulfillment, humility remains essential. The greater the glory, the deeper the gratitude. You must guard your heart against pride, remembering that everything now visible began in the unseen, when no one believed in you but heaven did. Never forget the nights you prayed for what you now carry. Gratitude will keep your crown from becoming heavy. Fulfillment also comes with new responsibility. The revelation entrusted to you must be shared through your living. Not just your words, every action, every response, every kindness becomes testimony. You are no longer waiting for the next miracle, you are becoming one. That is what it means to walk in prophecy fulfilled, to live as evidence that divine promises are real. The world around you may still be chaotic, but within you, a new order has taken root. The storms no longer define you, they obey you. You no longer ask if you are chosen, you know it. The weight of uncertainty has lifted, replaced by quiet conviction. You have become steady, anchored, luminous. So stand here for a moment, chosen one. Breathe in what fulfillment feels like, the stillness after fire, the peace after pursuit. You have arrived at the threshold where heaven's promises meet earthly reality. And though this chapter closes, the story does not. Fulfillment is not the end of prophecy, it is the birth of legacy. The light you now carry will outlive you, touching generations yet unseen. You are crowned, refined, and released. You are the living proof that faith outlasts fear, that patience perfects promise, that obedience opens eternity. What began on December 9 as a whisper has become a world of revelation. You are the continuation of that whisper, its voice, its flame, its fulfillment. And now, chosen one, the circle completes. The revelation that began as a whisper has become a living rhythm in your heart. You have walked through the storm, the silence, the refining fire, and you stand now as one reborn. But the story doesn't end here. The light within you was never meant to stay contained. It was meant to flow outward, to find other flames, to keep the world warm with truth. This is the moment to breathe, to look back with gratitude, and to look forward with courage. The path may twist again, but you will no longer walk as one searching, you will walk as one sent. Every word you have read, every truth that has stirred you, is part of heaven's call to keep spreading the light. So if these words have touched your spirit, let your response be more than silent agreement. Let it ripple outward, When you like, it is as though you place a stone in the river of faith, sending waves toward other souls who need this same reminder. When you share, you hold up a torch for someone still lost in the dark, whispering, "Here, this way leads home." And when you subscribe, you anchor yourself among the remnant, those walking in the same divine rhythm, growing stronger together. And if your heart feels led, leave your voice in the comments. Write what this journey has awakened in you, your declaration, your prayer, your gratitude. Your words might be the spark that reignites another's hope. You have not come this far by chance. Heaven guided you here. The same light that found you will now move through you. So rise. Chosen one, carry this fire, and let the world feel the warmth of what God began in you.